to see some of the peaks of the mountains over Pigeon Forge today, like Mount LeConte over the Bluff Mountain. These clouds will be off and on with us through the course of this Friday, and eventually seeing some peaks of sunshine this afternoon, and then we rebuild the cloud cover going through our Saturday. So there's what we're looking at in Pigeon Forge, what we're looking at for the next couple of hours and into the weekend. Cool clouds now, clouds and sun with calmer winds for parts of the weekend. And then we're going to be increasing those winds as we go into our Saturday afternoon, and that starts to blow in the moisture that we're going to have here for some rain, and that leads into some snow here as well. So your first alert forecast breaks down like this. For this Friday, we are talking about 50 degrees at noon, 56 with peaks of sunshine, and the winds are calmer, 5 to 10, just stirring just a little bit. But we increase those gusts up to 20 miles per hour as we go into parts of our Saturday. Still calm overnight tonight as well, with some scattered clouds starting off at 37 for your Saturday. Here's a look at the futurecast on Saturday. Just that mix of sun and clouds for that sunrise tomorrow. We're very cold, down into the 30s. We start to increase the winds going into the afternoon, 10 to 15 miles per hour, gusting upwards of 20 at times. Here's the 9 o'clock hour as we see a little more sunshine. Maybe you try to get out the door, run some errands, and maybe do a little jog or walk the dog or something like that. Still staying nice and calm. You'll notice that increase in wind by 1 o'clock in the afternoon. And also for those of you over Gatlinburg to Newport, parts of Dandridge, you'll start to see that increase in cloud cover as well. And then it starts to really settle in to our southernmost communities as we go into the 4 o'clock time frame from Madisonville over to Tellico Plains. Not going to rule out the possibility that we could ring out just a couple of light sprinkles at first for you. Remember, we have to saturate the entire column of air before it all starts to reach down to the surface. Knoxville starting to see the clouds. Still wet for us for much of the evening. If you have some evening plans, keep that umbrella handy throughout our afternoon and evening on your Saturday from Knoxville down to Maryville. You see down to the south where that heavier stuff is still trying to creep its way into some of our neighborhoods. We pause it at 11 o'clock, still wet and getting wetter from Madisonville to Maryville. Back over, say, Seymour, you're starting to see more of that, as well as southern Knox County as well. Into the overnight hours, notice what happens now when we get across parts of the plateau. Starting to see that transition during this 2 o'clock time frame, parts of Scott County into Fentress County. Rain has really settled in from Madisonville over to Tellico Plains, parts of McMinn County into Lenoir City, Kingston as well, moving forward into the 4 o'clock time. So if you're up and early on a Sunday morning early, really wet from Knoxville over to Pigeon Forge, talking about cold rainfall for parts of Roane County, Anderson County as well. And again, transitioning to a mixed precipitation when we get into Crossville, parts of Fairfield Glade as well. Move the time frame forward. More of you are starting to wake up at 6 o'clock. Really moderate rainfall starting to stay with us for parts of Anderson County from Oak Ridge back over into Clinton, Rocky Top, La Follette, moving into Tazewell as well. You see Jefferson County in on the mix, as well as Gatlinburg, Sevier County, Cott County, Maryville, Madisonville, and really the transition has started to happen over Cumberland County as well by this 6 o'clock time frame. And that's with us through the mid-morning hours. If some of you are trying to get to the early services at church, you'll deal with that mixing across Cumberland County, Crossville, parts of Maryville, over into Townsend, Walland. You're seeing that mix now as well. That fine line starts to really separate how things are going to shape up for the afternoon on Saturday, or Sunday, excuse me, as we get into Wares Valley, parts of Pigeon Forge. Notice the time frame here. Let's move it on to 10 o'clock. Snow really starting to take shape over parts of the Smoky Mountains, really where no one lives, but we're talking about significant accumulations that could occur there as we get above 5,000 feet. And you're looking from Pittman Center, Cosby, back over into Hartford, Pigeon Forge, you're starting to center. Cosby, back over into Hartford, Pigeon Forge, you're starting to see parts of that mixing happen as well. Notice just that cold rain for you from Knoxville back over into Morristown, parts of Granger County, Maynardville and Union County, Lenoir City, Kingston. Just a cold rain for you. That mixing is continuing over parts of the plateau as well. Here's 12 o'clock noon. So those of you who managed to get to church, you're out the door. Notice we've got pretty heavy bands of snowfall that are going in and around Gatlinburg, Pittman Center, Cosby, back over into Jones Cove, English Mountain. Much of Sevier County seeing that light mixing for the middle part of the day, still staying that cold rain into Knoxville, of southern Knox County, Halls, Fountain City, back over into Hardin Valley as well. So this is where that fine line is that we need to watch here as we move into the rest of the weekend. This could change. No doubt it will change, but we'll monitor things and this is how it is shaping up for us right now at this time. So here's 3:30 in the afternoon. Notice starting to encroach just a little bit of mixing now into southern Knox County. Not going to be a total big deal here if this manages to shape up, but notice closer in the areas like Pigeon Forge, Wares Valley, Townsend, Wallen, that's where we could see the snow that has been accumulating here for the last little while. Of course, the ground's a little bit warmer today, so the initial band of this will no doubt melt, especially having that cold rain to begin with, but some of these areas will start to see that colder snowfall manage to fall here over the next couple of hours on this Sunday afternoon and evening. That stays with us 5:30, 6 o'clock at night. If you have some dinner plans late in the day on Sunday, some of you may have the late evening services. Notice the rain has already started to taper off from Crossville to Jamestown, Wartburg, back over into La Follette, that fine line over Knox County. You can see just a lot of rainfall in the interior sections of Knox County, extending back over into Granger County and Morristown. And then this line starts to continue to pull away, and by 8 o'clock, most of us off to the west, seeing the stars, clouds with us for parts of the east, and still be ringing out a couple of snow bands that have not managed to take shape here on this resolution for parts of the Smoky Mountains. Again, above 5,000 feet, so no doubt if you have travel plans over Newfound Gap Road, maybe trying to get from Cherokee into Gatlinburg or Gatlinburg to Cherokee, or some of you like to head over and spend some time in Cherokee on a Sunday evening, no doubt Newfound Gap Road potentially and likely will close here, if nothing else, for the high winds that we're expecting to blow in as well. So make plans for that if you do like to go to Cherokee on a Sunday evening. Here's Sunday evening at 11 o'clock. All that continues to pull away. We're left with just a mix of clouds and stars for us, and that's the way we're going to start our Monday. So let's first of all look at the rainfall potential. The rain arrives first, remember, for the start of our middle part of the day on our Saturday. 1.25 inches to 1.5 inches in some locations, especially where we get some of those moderate to heavier rain bands that manage to find a home, say in and around Sevier County, where we're in Sevierville, close to that 1.5 inch range. Lighter amounts when we get across the plateau. Remember, this all starts from the south and works its way north, and that rotates around and starts to pull back over into the Carolinas. So the bigger winners with some of this is going to be for parts of western North Carolina and into the Carolinas. 1/4 inch Crossville, barely a drop in the rain bucket for Jamestown and Fentress County. So that's where the fine line is for the rain. Let's take a look at some of those future temperatures. Now this is where that fine line is going to be as we start to move into our Saturday of who starts to see the transition when and where at what time. These are surface temperatures, no doubt colder as you get higher into the cloud tops here. 49 Crossville at noon to 49 Pigeon Forge. Remember, the rain has not started to arrive yet from that futurecast we showed you. So let's move it right on into our Sunday morning, where many of us are going to be just hovering above the freezing mark. And this is where it's going to be oh so crucial here as to what happens. Remember, higher up it is cold, so no doubt falling is snow. If you're in areas like Knoxville, it's already melted by the time it got down into your neighborhood or on your street or roadway. Crossville 35 doesn't give it quite as much time to melt, and so that's why it could fall as snow and eventually get onto the ground here, and as we get colder and stay colder through the afternoon, making that accumulate on some of those grassy surfaces. And you see there Pigeon Forge over to Newport, the same for you. Obviously much colder in areas like Pittman Center, Cosby, over to Wares Valley, English Mountain. You're higher up into the elevations there, so something that you'll have to pay attention to into your neighborhood as well. Into the middle part of the day, still hovering just above the freezing mark. Areas like Pigeon Forge at 36 to Newport at 36, Crossville 37 over to Kingston. And again, 4 o'clock in the afternoon. It's even colder now in Pigeon Forge over to Newport. This is where that fine line is, and while we think we'll have more accumulations into the foothills there. So this is something that we need to watch here into your neighborhood and where we have these colder areas as well. And notice if you look back to that futurecast, the southern areas of Knox County seeing and mixing. So Knoxville now at a 36-degree time frame. Crossville has warmed up to 48, so that's why you start to end with those snow bands earlier on into the afternoon. Here's the way we're painting the picture for you right now. Snowfall potential. Again, this may not be what accumulates on the ground, but this is what could fall in your neighborhood. Very, very light from Oneida over to La Follette, Jamestown. I think much of that melts by the time it reaches the surface. Maybe you see a few flakes, but it just kind of melts away. Some pockets of interior sections of Cumberland County, you see there where that word Crossville is, just to the south of you, you could see some bands that move through and just have just a little higher amount, closer to that ½ inch to an inch. So not a lot for the plateau. In some areas, those little higher mountaintops, parts of Knox County back over into Blount County as well towards Greenback, could see just that little light dusting as well. Again, you're warm, so should melt by the time it reaches the ground. The difference is when we get into areas like Townsend, Wallen, Wares Valley, over into Pigeon Forge, Sevierville, Dandridge, Newport, back over into English Mountain, areas like Hartford. This could be a different story for you as you actually get closer to that freezing mark, and then we build the snow on top of that so that we're able to have some that actually manages to accumulate on the ground for you. So obviously you see those pinks and purples there. That's when we get into the higher elevations of the Smokies, and where areas like Newfound Gap, Klingman's Dome, Mount LeConte is going to be seeing some impactful snow for there. For those of you who may be wanting to do a hike or planning a hike or something like that, even if it's on Monday, you're going to have to maybe postpone that just a little bit. But I'm going to take you into these neighborhoods where we think we're going to have the highest impact here. You see Gatlinburg closer to that 6-inch range by the time all is said and done, tapering off to that closer to 2.5 in Sevierville. So a fine line there. We could have more snow on the ground in Pigeon Forge than say Sevierville, and Sevierville manages to melt. Again, through the spur and into Gatlinburg, you'll start to see how that all builds. And it all depends on where these snow bands manage to just find a home, continue to drop that snow here over the next little while. Move back over into Newport. Closer to that 3-inch range, and then back over into Hartford. It's a little colder there. We've got the snow that has stayed with you a little bit longer. You get back into that lighter pink and into the lighter colors as well. And of course, moving back over into Townsend, Wallen, parts of Blount County, into Sevier County, right at that Wares Valley line. That's where we're looking at just that fine transition there. And some of you on the higher peaks, if you're in Wares Valley, maybe down in the valley, it's not as impactful for you. But those of you on those ridges and higher mountaintops, you'll see more in your neighborhood as well. So just something to plan for, and no doubt you know what happens in your neighborhood and can make some decisions here over what happens. Are we looking at something that's going to stick with us here for days and days and days? Not looking for that, because you'll see an 8-day planning forecast coming up here in a little while. We're going to warm up very quickly on Monday, so should not be a major problem for you, for those of you who do have to get out and about on your Monday morning. So road impacts on Sunday, still, even with this transition from Crossville to Wartburg, Jamestown, Oneida, La Follette, back over into Tazewell, Sneedville, not as impactful for you. So should not be a big deal. You just slow it down, pretend like you're driving in the rain, should be a-okay. When you get into areas like Gatlinburg, maybe you're going to try to drive from Gatlinburg over to Newport, Cosby, something like that. That could be a little different story for you, or maybe you have to watch for some of those patches of ice that manage to accumulate on the roadways. And of course, traveling the spur, that is the one road from Gatlinburg to Pigeon Forge that the National Park Service does treat with salt on that one road only. So they will be out monitoring that situation, working on the roadways, and of course lighter impacts as you get into parts of Sevierville, into say Allensville, back over into Milliken Grove, but a little higher up on the mountaintop on English Mountain for you as you move into Sunday afternoon and into your Monday morning. But again, Monday we bring back the sunshine. We're back into the mid-50s and should start to make some progress here. We zoom it a little closer and just kind of show you how that fine line manages to be there. So no doubt the National Park Service will probably at some point make the decision to close that road. So I was explaining to you how this impact is going to be here and really the fine line of what is happening. So here's the best way to break this down for you. I'm going to pull this full for you so you can see here what we're looking at. We're looking at what happens with what I'm going to ask if we can get that graphic off of there. I've messed up here, that weather alert graphic. I want to explain to folks what is going on in terms of it starts as snow, and by the time we get down to the surface, we're close to that 32-degree mark, and it depends on how long that column of air is going to be in the 32-degree range before it hits the surface that we're able to transition that back over into rain. So look over to the left-hand side of your screen there. We're below 32, higher elevations, and then say areas like Knox County, that transition starts higher up into the layer of the atmosphere. And that's when we get above 32, and you give a little bit more time for that snowflake to melt before it manages to get down to where we actually live. Areas like Sevier County, Gatlinburg, parts of the plateau, that column of air is going to be below 32 degrees longer, so that snowflake stays intact a lot longer before we manage to get down to the surface and into your neighborhood. So that's where this fine line, depending on your elevation, depending on your street, what's going on, that could be a difference from, say, just a rain event in Knox County to some peaks of Sevier County's mountains having more snow that manages to stick and accumulate, at least for the initial onset. But again, as you're going to see in the extended forecast here for us, we're going to warm up very nicely into our Monday, where we're looking at sunshine that's with us and into the 55-degree range. But that's after starting out at 28, so no doubt a cold start on Monday. This does blow in colder air as well, and then we manage to get back into the 50s and rolling into the rest of the week there. You see even some 60s in the forecast with more rain before pulling back into the 40s. As always, I'll remind you that the WVLT First Alert weather app you see just below my picture there, that is what you can scan and get the very latest information on what is going on with this event. Not only what's going on live in your neighborhood in terms of temperatures, snowfall, rainfall, but the impacts that we're expecting to come in the coming hours. So the First Alert weather app, we're always able to dive in just a little bit deeper into what maybe could happen in specific neighborhoods as opposed to a time limit, if you will, that we may have on television. And of course, I'll take you back to our live cameras over into Pigeon Forge, where we have the clouds today. The sunshine is going to be here. Enjoy your Friday. The first part of your Saturday is going to be a cold morning, but nonetheless able for you to get out and get some errands done. If you need to run to the grocery store, maybe a quick shopping trip or something like that, you'll be able to manage to do that on the drier side, as opposed to once we get into the afternoon on your Saturday and into much of Sunday, when it's just a wet, soggy mess that is going to be with you. And of course, if you don't have the weather app, I would hope that you would get it, but also a more detailed look into the WVLT.TV website. We can show you live weather maps there as well, and also that latest custom forecast. As you see, Heather has already updated here for us this morning. So that is the situation. Most of us are going to get through this okay, and the warmer air that rushes in on Monday, who does manage to see anything accumulate, definitely is going to melt that away in a timely fashion. We've got the latest on WVLT News at noon, and always in the WVLT First Alert weather app. Have a great day.